Hello, my name is ginoschiavone and I am going to give you this series of continuous professional development for your knowledge. Should you require any questions on this PowerPoint presentation and webinar, please contact me on ginoschiavone@yahoo.com. In this webinar, we will be dealing with strategies. What is a strategy? How is it best developed? What are the characteristics of a strategy and who uses a strategy? There are many books and articles about strategy, and a very good book on strategy is that of Henry Mintzberg, Strategic Safari. He develops 10 schools of thought. As you can see from this slide, the first one is what is referred to as a design school. And in effect, before you create a strategy, it is important that you have the mission and vision of the educational institution in place. Then the next step would be to do a SWOT analysis. What are the strengths, the weaknesses, the opportunities and threats before you start developing a strategy. In basic terms, a strategy might have a mixture of these schools that Henry Mintzberg refers to. As you can see in the slide, there is the planning school, the positioning, entrepreneurial and cognitive, and there are another 5 types of schools that he mentioned, which if you would like to read more about them, you will have obviously to read the text Strategy Safari of Henry Mintzberg. But in simple terms, the strategy is actually a plan, but then the plan might have, as I said already, a mixture of the other schools. For example, in your plan, there might be how you are going to compete with other educational institutions. And in that case, the plan will be like a ploy. So there are many types of schools according to Mintzberg, but we can say in a nutshell that it is actually a plan. How you will go to create that plan is another matter. But the most important thing when creating a strategy is to involve all stakeholders. And when I say involve all stakeholders, it also includes the general public. And therefore you will need to somehow put your strategy to the public. You have to communicate it to the public in order to get feedback before you actually create your strategy. Strategy is actually a plan with methods to bring about the mission to its target. So as I said before, it takes into account the strengths, the weaknesses, the opportunities, and the threats. And when you create the strategy of an educational institution, it must work along with the mission. Why? Because this is what you plan to achieve from it, your mission. It also works with the vision because this is with whom the value will be created and captured, and it must work with the vision because this is why people should be motivated to work for. All these together are obviously assisted with policies and procedures to bring the strategy to life. Now remember that the strategy on its own, on paper, will not work, and it needs the human resources and also the financial aspect. For the financial aspect, you can click on the first link where you will read or listen to disruptive innovation explained in education. And here the explanation is how education has evolved from being offered to the few and now to the many, and you have to apply this to an educational institution as regards to admissions and financial areas like fees, payment, expenses, etc. In the second link, this is a link where it says that this strategy must also look at what students really want. The third link is to let you know where strategy is today and using this strategy as a flexible way to adapt and being able to make a change quickly as much as possible because things change. So a strategy is what you want to do to move from where you are now into the future. Usually in a strategy, you write your present status, your present situation, and where you want to go. And your plan in the strategy is how you are going to do that, including an acceptable risk management assessment. But in a strategy, you never tell exactly the employees how to do things. In a strategy, a direction is given and the employees are involved in how to get there. So the employees will discuss in focus groups, in any other matter, how they will get there, and this feedback is obviously important to create also procedures. Now a process is the actual doing of the task, like giving steps how to get there. So the procedure will have a process, it will go through a process in order to eliminate the risks, and this will greatly contribute to quality. So now we move to the characteristics of a strategy. First of all, it should be built on labor market information and analysis. You will have to get information to know what's happening around you and in the world, because today education is globalized. An education strategy should include teaching and learning. Remember that teaching and learning are the heart of an educational institution. We are not talking about any other company. We are talking about an educational institution, and therefore teaching and learning must make part of an educational strategy. Unless you have a separate strategy of teaching and learning, which you will refer to only in the general strategy of the institution. And as we said many times before, it all starts from a SWOT analysis, and you must have all the evidence that all stakeholders were involved. In this case, you need to keep minutes of the meetings and any action plans taken from these meetings. It's important that every now and then you review the mission, the vision, and the values, because this is the platform, the base for all strategies. And if partnerships are needed presently and also in the future, these must be looked at in the strategy, and you will need to obviously also have evidence that discussions have been taking place with partners and that they are fit to be with your typical institution. Now we come to a short activity, and if you would like to do this activity and receive feedback from me, please contact me on ginoschiavone@yahoo.com. So the first activity is actually to desk research the Henry Mintzberg strategy and the 5 Ps. Write down your evaluation of Mintzberg's strategy and make your comments. I have done an appropriate link in order not to go researching everywhere. So you can click on that link, read the 5 Ps of Henry Mintzberg, and then give me your comments. The second Point is to write about the difference between a strategy, a plan, and a process. It's important that you understand the difference between these three because if you are doing an auditing report, you have to make a distinction. Desk research by reading the Planning and Plan Implementation Notes on Evaluation Criteria by E.R. Alexander, 1989, Volume 16. The page is indicated. And if you want to actually send the difference to me so I can give you the feedback, please use my email as seen on this slide. The last short activity that I would like you to do is to read the 7 chapters of Strategic Wisdom. You can click on the link and say what are the characteristics of the emergent and the positionist and what will your position be in regards if you would favor more the emergent or the positionist. We have said this before that finance is an important part of a strategy and therefore funding and government policy are good ingredients to look at for formulating a strategy. The strategic plans and operation plans are sometimes intermingled when writing a strategy. But you should explain better these two terms in order not to get confusion, and all those who are reading it will read it in an easy way. A strategy then must have the right human resources also to be realized, and therefore you must need a good organigram as part of the written strategy in order to understand how this strategy can become a reality. And as I also have said before, the strategy needs to be flexible and you need to be agile in changing things as you go along. So strategy is not something written in stone and cannot be changed, but you might have meetings and keep the minutes of those meetings to see why a strategy is changed on the way. I would like to give you a simple example of a strategy if you are going to write it. So at the beginning, obviously, you will have a table of contents of what's being listed. There will be a list of acronyms and abbreviations. You will have an executive summary, which you can put either at the beginning of the written strategy or at the end. There is no hard and fast rules where to put this summary. Obviously, you will need a short introduction about your educational institution, its past, the present, and perhaps the agreements for the future. And then you start describing your management structures, where you will put also the organigram. Then, because this is a teaching and learning institution, you will need to do the study programs and the operations. Then you will need to write about the funding and budgeting, how all this is going to materialize, because without that nothing can be done. You explain the macro environment you are operating in, and then you put your future actions towards the last of the strategy and also include any references if you would like to create any references. I hope you enjoyed this short continuous professional development about strategy. And please, if you would like to receive other continuous professional development modules, just write to me on ginoschiavone@yahoo.com. Thank you.